Welcome everyone. We'll get started very soon. Good morning. It's great to see that number climbing. So it now is 7 a.m. So I'm sure some people are just signing on for the first time at this very moment. Great to see some familiar names and some very new names, which is very exciting. All right, well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Jackalone from Marist College, and today is Webinar Wednesday. I'll be serving as your moderator. We're talking about a very important subject about getting involved in the 2021 elections and committees. Today, we have an esteemed panel that are here to talk you through these processes. And I wanted to let you know that there is a question and answer session that will take place at the end. So throughout this presentation, feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A box. There is a chat box, and you may use that to say hello to people and interact with us in other ways. But for your questions, specifically about the slides and about this topic, please submit those through the Q&A. This session is being recorded and will be available to you at a later time on the International ACAC website. Let's begin.
Good morning, everyone. This is Marie Vivas, the past president of International ACAC. I'd like to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves before we move ahead. Michelle?
Hi. Hello. Hi, good evening, afternoon, morning to you. I'm coming in from Beijing, China, and I'm head of high school counseling at Western Academy of Beijing and also the VP for membership.
Marco?
Hi, everyone. Marco Di Novelli. I'm the Director of Recruitment and Outreach for Rutgers University in New Brunswick here in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and I serve on the board as a NACAC delegate.
Hi, everyone. I'm Johanna Fischbein. I'm the Director of College Counseling at the American School in Switzerland, and I am a former delegate and former past president of International ACAC.
Hello, everyone. My name is Allison Murray. I'm the VP for Communications at International ACAC and a committee member in previous years. I'm joining you today from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. This is my home base, and I'm the Associate Director of Student Recruitment for Dalhousie University.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Teresa Schweizer. I'm the Executive Director of International ACAC, and I'm coming to you from HQ headquarters now at my dining room table.
And I'm Marie Vivas. I work for the International Baccalaureate in the Americas office right outside of Washington, D.C. I'm coming to you from my home in Maryland. Thank you, everyone. So we'll go ahead and dive right into it. Joe?
So the first poll is coming your way. I'd like to know where you are joining us from. So feel free to just take a few moments to answer the poll. We'll leave it up, and then we will publish the results so everyone can see. We have just about 76% of the people out there voting. It's going up. Leave it up just for a few more moments. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll. And here you go. All right, we have one more poll to get a sense of who's out there. So if we could take a few moments. and answer this question. Please identify your member category. And we'll leave this open just for a few more moments. And I think we have definitely have the majority here. We're going to end the poll. And here you go.
Thank you, Joe. So I see
Right.
we have a really nice mix of folks from different regions and quite a few secondary colleagues here. So today we're going to start off with a very brief, and I promise it will be very brief, history of International ACAC member contributions. And then we're going to go directly to why and how to volunteer to support International ACAC at the committee level or at the executive board level. And we're planning to leave about 15 minutes at the end for questions and answers. So next slide, please. So, as you know, this organization started in 1991, and volunteers, members of this organization, have been working for the organization and making things happen since the very beginning. So, some of the things that international members have contributed to: conferences, summer and regional institutes. Many of you have presented at conferences, joined different panels, helped plan activities, published newsletters. Back in the day, they were paper and mailed, and now they're electronic. Thank goodness they get to you a lot faster. They have also helped develop a website. We actually came into existence pre-internet, so that the first few years of developing a website were very excited. And then, of course, we had numerous hours of other work to make this organization work. We went from about 15 people to close to 3,600 people, I believe now, and many of you have given your time and energy to this organization. Today, we find ourselves in a little bit of a different position than when we started. We actually have 3 full-time staff members and a consultant that supports the regional institutes. However, we are an organization of 36 or 3,700 people, and therefore, most of our activities continue to be run by volunteers. And this is why it's so important to have you engage with us in a variety of ways. Next slide. So these are some of the ways in which our colleagues throughout the world volunteer and interact with International ACAC. Webinars, session proposals, summer conference, being involved, mentoring and teaching in the pre-conference institutes, helping out by donating to the raffle, participating in first-timer events, writing a blog. There's a universe of different ways in which you interact with the organization and with each other and help us do the great work that we do of providing advocacy and professional development to our colleagues. Next slide. So we would like to find out if you have interacted with the association. Instead of a poll, we thought we'd just have you answer in the chat. There are all of those different ways that people interact with the association. How have you, participants, interacted with International ACAC? And I'm going to give you a few moments to just write something into the chat about the different ways that you have interacted with us.
Maria, I'm happy to read out the answers if for those. Conference, regional conference, presentation. The answers coming through. Mentoring new counselors. Morning from Chicago. I don't think that's getting involved. Attending regional institute and summer conferences, speaking on panels, online conferences. Committee member, mission practices, panel speaker. Attended multiple conferences. Rutgers, Case Western. Well, now they're coming in fast. Attending webinar Wednesdays. Yes, that counts if you're on right now.
Yes.
attended summer conferences, session proposal reader for summer conference, attending webinars. 5 times have been to the conference, presented at 4. That's impressive. Multiple counselor bus tours.
And I saw someone on there who was a mentor
Exec
to
board.
new scholars as well.
Panel speaker, yeah. So regional institutes, advocacy and outreach committee member, speaker on virtual conferences. Lots of engagement here. Presenting on high schools in Africa. Currently on the GNC. International ACAC conference attendances, co-conducting first-timer sessions, Wednesday webinars, counselor tours, airport greeter for the conference. Regional conference attendee, reader for chats that matter, chatter that matter. Sharing with my mentor. That's right, it's a two-way street there. Presenting at the annual conference, attending national conference webinars. Some really, really good engagement.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. And just to speak to the wealth of experience and knowledge that you bring to the table as you volunteer. So why volunteer? Indeed, it is a great networking opportunity. There's no better way to meet people in the association and get to know folks from different regions and different backgrounds than to have the opportunity to volunteer. And it's also a chance to give back to an association that really does provide us with a lot of enriching experiences. Yes, it's also important that it helps you build your resume as you move through the profession to get that experience hands-on with how you organize and interact with each other. And of course, developing important skills like, for example, being able to moderate a Zoom webinar and things like this. But honestly, it is just a very enriching experience for your life. Next slide.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in here. This is Teresa, and just talk for a minute about our committees, because this webinar talks about engagement, and this is a key opportunity. On this slide is listed the various formal committees that International ACAC has, including our standing committees, and then we have 2 service and mentors that support our annual summer conference. Typically in person, of course. We're in a period of pause right now. The important thing is you can see the different committees, how many members are on the committees. And as you think about service, and we'll go to a next slide in just a second, but committee members serve 3-year terms, and their terms begin July 1. The exception to that is the Governance and Nominating Committee, which is a standing committee, but those appointments are for 1 year only, and they change every year, and that's in accordance with our bylaws and our policies and procedures. Next slide, please. You can find more information on the website. I know we all say that, but if you're not familiar with International ACAC's website, you can see step 1, where you would find the link about committees. And then we noted step 2, the application for committee service beginning July 1, 2021 will open next week on December 10th. What's on this page, if you haven't looked, each committee, as you click on it, not only will show who are current committee members, but you're able to read the description of the work of the committee, current issues, the time commitment, and other information. So we invite you to check this out. And again, the application will open on December 10th. Thank you, Joe. Next slide. Marie?
So we've asked a couple of colleagues who have served on committees to share their experiences of volunteering. So as you can see, we kind of gave them some questions to ponder on, and I'm going to turn it over to Allison and Michelle. So Allison, would you like to go first? Next slide, please.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Marie. As I said earlier, I have had some opportunities to be engaged with the communications committee. And then more recently, I've moved into the role of VP for communications. And so happy to reflect on the last couple of years and what I've gained from this experience. And I'll share a little bit as well about why I chose to move from what I would consider myself to have been a passive, international ACAC participant. I certainly was consuming the great information that is out there for members. I was attending conferences, but I was looking to be more actively engaged. And I had been hearing from colleagues who, volunteer and give their time to a variety of different industry associations, how meaningful and valuable that experience was to them in their own development. And so that was really the impetus for me researching the committee a little bit more, and then taking the leap to submit my application. And even reflecting in preparation for today's conversation, the application process itself, it was straightforward, but it was thorough and it was reflective. It really allowed me the opportunity to think about why I wanted to get involved. And I think more importantly for me, it really also opened the door to facilitate a conversation with my manager about what my professional development interests and needs were. And it was really quite meaningful to have their support. And I don't know that we would have naturally had the level of dialogue that we had if I wasn't approaching them, to really gain their support to put that application in. For me, the Communications Committee was a tremendous opportunity to flex skills that I've used in previous roles in different parts of my life, but that I wasn't getting to use too much in my day-to-day work at the moment. So it also allowed me to draw on skills that I had gained and built in other volunteer organizations and with different boards. And so it was a chance to start applying those to something that was meaningful to our industry, something that I could see the day-to-day impact on. And when I think back to walking into my first, committee meeting, I admittedly was a little bit nervous. I wasn't really sure what to expect. I had met most of these folks before, aside from some emails and WhatsApp messages, but I felt incredibly welcomed and involved from day one. And one of the things that I really appreciated about the committee structure is the rolling nature of the terms of the committee members. And what that meant as a new member is I was walking into a space where there were folks with varied lengths of experience on the committee. And that really allowed me to learn and be informally mentored by other committee members, and to join into some projects straight away. I was able, over the course of my time with the committee, to really dig into one particular project and feel like I was making a meaningful and tangible difference, which was very important to me. And it allowed me to build some great, not only, networking in the professional sense, but some great friendships, which now span the country and the globe. So that committee experience for me was very meaningful, had a very positive experience. And that really served as a great launch pad for me when I was thinking about what comes next, and when there was an opportunity to submit an application to join the board in a vice president role. I felt like I had built the confidence and also the familiarity with International ACAC that I needed to really put my name forward for that next opportunity. So that familiarity was both with the individuals, getting to know who is at HQ, who are the members, who's heavily engaged in the organization, but also having a confidence about my knowledge of the structures, how things work, the organization. So that cumulative progression for me was really meaningful, really important. And I've been nothing but thrilled with my experience so far as a volunteer, and every week feel like there's been an opportunity to make a really tangible impact and a difference, and just feel like my day-to-day work is being complemented in ways that are really important to me. So I won't say any more, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that folks may have, when we move to that portion of the webinar today. And you're going to be hearing from some others. So I look forward to hearing their thoughts as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Michelle?
Hi, so it's a pleasure to be here. This is actually my second term as the VP for membership. I've been a member of International ACAC since 2009, which coincided with my first year as a high school counselor. I attended the conferences the first 3 years with the association. And as I reflect on my journey to the work and to the executive board, it wasn't quite a direct route as Allison had through committee work, but it was through, I think, working and building a regional network and creating community within Beijing. I was also the college visit coordinator at the school, at my school, and just being in contact with so many different individuals. I slowly learned about the International ACAC and the amazing work that was happening. Presented a couple times, I believe, in the summer conferences as well. So Ruby, our VP for memberships, or sorry, VP for admissions and practices, she and I were kind of reflecting on our experiences and writing a blog actually just recently. We talked about our experience and how we got into the board and why, and reflected on the initial application process. So before we submitted our applications to be considered, there were, truthfully, we felt that there was a bit of a level of imposter syndrome on our part. And it was because of not having seen many other women of color serving on the board. So we know, Joan Leo, Maria Vivas was, the two main. And so that was kind of, we felt, should we be there? So taking the first step, submitting the application, was well outside our comfort zones. And that time in 2017, my colleague, Franco Savazari, he really he pushed me to consider opportunity, and he had a lot of confidence in me and said that you can do the work of membership, because he was actually on the membership committee. And so he knew the workings of it, and just working with me for so many years, he understood how I worked, and he said that I'll be a great asset. And so he actually just threw the application to my face. So it was great. And the reason why I chose a membership to apply for was because of the skill set that was required. And, I think, as you know, that year is usually the membership, the inclusion access, and I believe the other one, I forgot now, that was up for running for that year. So there's quite a large number of VP positions the year that I came on. So, but yeah, so just reflecting on how I work and what I like and what I like to do, I felt membership was quite fitting. So serving on the board has not only provided me with an opportunity to give back to the community, that means so much, and for me to grow as a professional, and also, like Allison mentioned, having that conversation with my institution, which I've been with since day one of my career. I think that helps for me to have that stability at my school and at my work, to allow me to then further extend that extra work that I do a lot on the weekends. But keeping in mind that this is actually a full-time, I call this my full-time part-time job. And I'm not just saying that just to scare anyone or scare you from trying or wanting this. We really do work hard, but we also play hard. We love each other. We think it's so much fun at our board meetings. And we mostly do, work and really enjoy the work that we do. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have at the end, but I'll leave it to the next person to share as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. Next slide.
Hey, this is Teresa again. We're going to pivot a little bit. We reflected on committees, and the other opportunity for service is serving on the executive board. And the 2020 elections will be approaching. This just puts out to you the timeline. Like the committees, the application for serving on the board will open on December 10th and close on February 1. There's a number of questions on the application, so we want to allow plenty of time to be thoughtful and reflect and to answer on that. And then the voting will open in sometime in March. We're a little vague on that just until we get situated and see the slate, but our bylaws dictate we hold our elections in March, April, and typically they're held throughout the month of March, and we'll expand that as we confirm those dates moving forward. You see on the bottom here the website for board elections, and we're going to go to that page in just a minute, but that's where we will continue to build out the information about the 2021 elections. Next slide, please. The application for the board is, as Michelle and Allison both said, needs some reflection, and this is what is required. There is an application, and that will open on December the 10th. In addition, we require a current resume or CV. an important letter of institutional support. And we ask you to have your supervisor sign this form. It outlines sort of your responsibilities, the time commitment, the funding we provide for attending the summer conference and NACAC when those in-person events are possible. Because it's important for, we believe, to share with your supervisor employer that this is what Support International ACAC provides, but that is a required document. And then a letter of reference from a colleague, not the person who signs your letter of institutional support, but a colleague who can write about your application for board service. And they are all due on February 1st. And that is a firm deadline for all the documentation. And there's a whole process for that. And the website, as we alluded to, really outlines those very next steps. Thank you. Next slide, please.
So we've asked a couple of colleagues here to speak to the positions that are open this year. We have open president-elect and 4 NACAC Assembly delegate positions. So Johanna Fishbein will speak first, and then Marco Di Novelli. So Johanna, would you please speak a little bit to your experience as president?
Sure. So hi, everyone. Yeah, so as I said, I actually originally got involved with International ACAC when it was OACAC back in 2009. And I joined first as a delegate. I joined the board for 3 years. And then after those 3 years, I applied for the president-elect role. So I think the things to know about being president-elect is, first, it's a 3-year cycle, which is, I think, really excellent. So you come in as president-elect, and when you're within your first year of the role, it's really very much planning for the conference that you will host as president, whether that be virtually or in person. And then you have your president year, and then you have a past president year. So it's a 3-year commitment, but throughout, because of that cycle, it means you're always supported throughout the time by either a president or a past president or a president-elect. So you work as a team of 3 with your executive director, who would be Teresa. And so it was a really, it's a super valuable experience in terms of that mentorship that you build. I think the first part is that applying for that role, especially president-elect, is really intimidating. Exactly what Michelle was talking about. I think all of us feel that we're not quite qualified, and it's really scary to put your name out there. But the only thing I can say about it is I found it really positive because you really reflect on your strengths through that application process. And I think it really has helped me in my professional life as a college counselor, because when you're talking to your supervisors and things, I think the things you highlight in your application, you have ways to use. So it's a good exercise professionally, but it is really hard. And I think there's never going to be an easy way to do it. But I can just say that I really think it's worth it. So the experience of being president of International ACAC is just super exciting. It is a time commitment. I think now with this full-time staff that Marie talked about, so you have an executive director who's Teresa, and then you have Margaret and Eleni who really helps so that the president team can kind of just focus on what their work is, and they support that. And so having that is amazing. And so I think that is something just to keep in mind. It is a time commitment, but you're very well supported throughout it. In terms of the things to also think about, I think it's the connection with NACAC. So for me, that was a big appeal of the role. Was I had always known what NACAC was. We talk about NACAC a lot, but I had never really thought about International's ACAC's role within NACAC, and within the president cycle, you're much more involved with that. You have a presidential class, so the president of every affiliate, you meet together twice a year in person. They support you throughout the year. And it's really interesting, especially from the international perspective, because a lot of the other affiliates are so interested in knowing what you can offer, because they don't always know the international perspective. So it's nice to bring that and learn a little bit more about what's happening in higher education across other affiliates as well. So it was the first time as the president or president-elect where I was really able to network even beyond International ACAC. So that was really exciting. And that's led to being able to serve on advisory boards. We had meetings with leadership of like Common Application and College Board and ACT. So you feel like your voice is really heard and that you also can really advocate for the voice of International ACAC. So I think there are times where it's challenging. There are times where it's you know, you're not always sure why you did it, but for the most part, at the end of the cycle, you really come out really, really proud, I think, of the work of International ACAC being able to support our members, and that you will really feel like you did something and achieved something. You get to nerd out about higher education all the time, which is super fun. And job opportunities. I think all the opportunities I've had within my career have been directly linked to the roles I've held within International ACAC. So I think the takeaway, I hope, is consider president-elect. It's really a great opportunity for making change, for advocacy, and for professional connections. And International ACAC headquarters really, really does so much to support you. So I hope that kind of helps a little bit. Marie, did I miss anything?
No, that was fantastic. Thank you very much, Johanna. Marco is going to speak a little bit about being an assembly delegate.
Sure, always difficult to follow, Johanna. But being a NACAC delegate, I've gotten questions about what does that mean? Am I on the board for NACAC or am I actually on the board for International ACAC? So let me start by just talking about what the role really entails. First, you're a full member of the International ACAC board. You're at all board meetings. Your vote counts just as much as anyone else. You bring up motions. You're weighing in on different proposals. So you're absolutely a full-fledged member of the International ACAC board. As a NACAC delegate, you generally have additional duties. I actually oversee the service committee. I have for the last 3 years for International ACAC, so that falls under what I do as a board member. Other delegates oversee things such as working with our mentors and our first year programming that we do at conferences and throughout the year as well. So, being a NACAC delegate, on the International ACAC board, you're doing a lot of different things. You're involved in so many different things. One of the most important duties, though, is what you do actually as a delegate at the NACAC conference. So NACAC delegates, a great way to look at them is similar to being on an assembly or a congressperson or whatever it may be, some form of person who's a member of a parliament. You're a voting member. So every year at the NACAC conference, you're voting on a number of different things. First of all, motions and changes, things like bylaws come up, generally every year. And as members of the NACAC assembly, as a delegate, you're going to be voting on these. You're bringing forward motions, and as it's International ACAC members, we have a really important duty. The rest of NACAC is generally obviously, U.S. based, and it's broken down to different states, throughout the U.S. We represent the world. That's so much what we do, and it's great. And so much of what we're always doing at NACAC conference is educating the rest of NACAC on the issues that we see and that we face on a daily basis in our jobs and with our students. So, for example, a few years ago, we brought a motion to the NACAC assembly to take a closer look at testing inequities worldwide, really looking at how access to both standardized testing, such as the SAT and ACT, was much more difficult for our international students than it was for students in the US. Now, other NACAC affiliates were like, well, what are you talking about? Don't students internationally just go to their local high school on a Saturday, just like we do in the US? And we were, for all of us, this is mind blowing. We're thinking about, no, we have students getting on planes and flying to other countries as the only way to take these standardized tests. And again, if that's not there, if you're a high school counselor in the US, you might have no knowledge of this or what's going on internationally. So we're not only, bringing these motions forward, we're educating other NACAC affiliates about what we deal with and what our students are going through. So it's a really important thing. We were successful in getting this motion passed, and NACAC took a look and has created a working group to work with both College Board and ACT on trying to assist with these inequities and trying to minimize them. Certainly, obviously, that's an ongoing thing. We could talk about that forever. But anyway, that's what you're doing as part of the assembly. You are there actively working for change and really trying to improve not just International ACAC and what we deal with, but NACAC overall, and really educating other members about what we do. So it's a really exciting, a position to have. I really think it's tremendously important. As Johanna mentioned, you meet so many different people. Being a member of the board, and meeting people at NACAC, but also at International ACAC. And I would echo one other thing that Johanna mentioned, and that's about the time commitment. Yeah, this is not something that you should just be like, oh, on a whim, I'm just gonna run to be on the board. It's something you really need to think about. But I will say, just like anything else, you get out of this what you put into it. There is so many valuable experiences I've had, being a member of the board. It hasn't always been perfect. There's definitely times where it's stressful and there's a lot going on. But being a part of change and being a part of trying to make a difference is something that I truly value. I was very fortunate. In 2016, I got to host the International ACAC conference at Rutgers, and I put a ton of work in that, and it was such a rewarding experience, and that led to me really wanting to be involved in committees and eventually join the board. And I will say the last 3 years have been incredibly rewarding for me. Certainly, I had to put in a lot of time and effort, but I love talking to people about being on the board. I recommend so many people to join and to be a part of it, because I think you can get so much out of it, so many things for your professional career and personally, but also that feeling like you're making a difference and you're really helping to move what we do forward, because so much of what we do, we don't do for the money. We're doing it because we're passionate about what we do and we want to help students. So if that's who you are, I think being a NACAC delegate is a great experience. You get to affect change, not just on the International ACAC board, but also at the umbrella organization NACAC. I think that's basically everything. Marie, did I miss anything you want me to touch on?
Oh, that was great. Thank you very much, Marco. And thank you all for sharing your experiences. Let's move to the next slide, please. Okay, so here are some tips, and I'm going to actually ask our colleagues to speak a little bit to this. Do your research. Talk to others who have been involved. Actually, Michelle, would you like to take this one? Because you kind of talked a little bit about this.
Sure, yeah. So in terms of the research, I looked at what position was available and looked at the skill set that was required, and kind of spoke with my colleague, but also other individuals in the community, and just to find out what I was getting myself into and what was a commitment, and if I could possibly provide that commitment. Mind you, I also have 3 little girls at home, but someone asked me a couple of years ago, how do I find time? And I kind of half jokingly would say, like, well, work is kind of my vacation from the girls. I mean, but it is a lot of work, and I do appreciate, like Marco has mentioned, and when is the personal engagement you get, and also the professional developments. But yeah, just definitely looking at the skill set that you have and you want to bring to the board. It doesn't have to be, it could be, well, how should I say this? The membership committee is very complicated, but it's very structural, right? The work that we do has is time frame, logistic, which is a lot of stuff that we do already. So if that's something that, and I'm a highly organized person, and Franco will agree. So it's something that I think I can bring to the committee, and you are managing a team of, currently I'm managing about 15 committee members. So understanding our different commitments and time, and also having a board meeting every once a month. Is that something that you have and you can give? And like I said, I think I'm lucky enough to be an institution that I'm comfortable and I know my work here well enough that I'm able to then extend further beyond what I'm doing. But yes, is there anything that I hit all the spots?
Thank you, Michelle. So complete the application and submit the documents, but the deadline, folks, our profession is all about deadlines. This is what we're always telling our students, our parents, our schools. So could you go back, Joe? Thank you. So I'm not even going to ask folks to give an opinion on this, but be specific. Johanna, could you speak to this?
Sure. So I think it's important just to look at the committees and think about what role you would bring to them, or look at the president electoral and be just very clear about why you're interested in that role. It's the same advice we'd give a student for their supplement essay. Make sure that they really feel that you've done your homework and you know why you'd be interested in the role. And I think share ideas, like don't be afraid to share, even if you think it's a kind of far-fetched idea. That's really exciting. I think that gets people excited. So I think that part's really important. Like think outside the box, because that's why we have this process and we want to bring in these new voices and new ideas and new perspectives.
Thank you. Allison, would you like to speak to number 4?
Yeah, sure. When I was preparing my committee application the first time, like you heard me say earlier, I felt that I had been a pretty fairly passive International ACAC member to date, sort of a little bit more shy on the periphery, and this was really putting my name forward. But in other parts of my life and my activities, both on my campus and in my community, I had been highly engaged and had a variety of different experiences. And so really reflecting on those skills and experiences when preparing my application to identify transferable skills, to look to other opportunities I had had through volunteerism and community engagement, and really sort of to point 3, specifically identify which experiences would complement the work on the board and which ones might enhance my ability to be a strong candidate in the role. So for me, I really tried to not just reflect on what I get to do in my day-to-day. And I think some of my strongest attributes and some of the best experience I have for the role that I'm in right now had nothing to do with my day job or my previous involvement in something linked to our industry, but other, volunteer or passion-based causes and opportunities that I've had. So I would encourage you to show your full self on the application. I think that's a great way to really identify what you can bring to the board, and don't feel that any experience is too small or too unrelated. But think about maybe how you can show that connection on your application. And that will just further the diverse perspectives that we have around the table. I think we need that diversity of opinion, of experience, of skills. So would really encourage you, if you're at all interested, to throw your hat into the ring.
Thank you. I think I'll tackle number 5 a little bit and also ask Marco to help me with that one. We are committed as an organization to diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, and we've put a lot of effort into listening to members and trying to make sure that we enrich our organization by becoming more diverse in our leadership and in our service committees, and also to make sure that other voices are being represented. So in that spirit, and we do ask a question about this on the application, we all bring different voices and can advocate for different voices. So I'm just setting that question up, Marco, because I know I'm asking the white guy to speak to this, but I think it's important to highlight that we all bring diversity and that we all can advocate. So would you please take a stab at this one?
Yeah, I would say, two points on that. I couldn't agree more, Marie, that having more voices and different perspectives on the board is the most important way to affect change with the organization. We're doing everything we can right now, or trying to do as much as possible right now as a board to hear from members and to hear all those different perspectives. And so much of that is encouraging people not only to speak, but to get more involved, because we need more diversity and more involvement on the board so that it's easier when any time we're talking about any changes, any motions, we're having those different perspectives. But diversity does mean a lot of different things. I'm from the East Coast. I'm from New Jersey. I definitely am probably one of the more aggressive people, I would say, on the board, who's who wants us to pick up a fight sometimes, where be a little more aggressive. So we all bring something to the table. But what is it about you as you're putting together an application? Who are you, and what are you going to bring that's a little different? You might be just looking at a picture of the board and saying, "Oh, I'm just like these people." everyone's a little different for some reason. Figure out what the thing is for you. What are you going to bring to the table? How are you different? Is it that you're coming from, a public, institution versus a private? Are you coming from, a different background? Whatever it may be. There's so many different ways to add to diversity. So don't be afraid to talk about with that, and to really take a hard look at yourself and figure out, who you are and what you can bring to the table.
Thank you, Marco. That was excellent. And number 6, we all are in the work of helping students apply and successfully enter university. We help students through application processes every day. It doesn't matter what side of that desk you're on, it is part of our job. And we are telling students every day, all of these things that we have just mentioned, follow your own advice that you give to students, reach out to others, have someone proofread your application questions, think about how you really represent yourself and what's unique about you. Do your homework about what this association is about and how you can help move forward the concerns and causes and professional development that we are engaging in. So just be thoughtful, mindful, and act as if you were one of your students who is really listening to you, as opposed to your students who say yeah and then don't do it. You really want to take advantage of the resources that you have available and be thoughtful as you go through this process. Next slide. Okay, so we're now open for questions and answers. I know that there is a question in the Q&A. I haven't looked at it. But I'm going to turn it over to Joe, who's going to send us the questions.
Great. So just as a reminder, everyone, you can submit your questions through the Q&A. I know there's a lot of information that was talked about during this presentation. The first question is from Juliet, who's saying, thanks for all of this. She really wants to volunteer or be actively engaged, but hasn't been in the association for hardly a year. They're a former scholar with little experience in international counseling. They believe the best way to learn is to be involved. Can they still get involved?
Allison, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is, no required length of membership to join a committee. And for me, a committee was a great launch pad. And I think for many board members, a committee was a great launch pad. But certainly to that earlier tip about doing your research, I would encourage you to visit the website to look at what roles are open and which ones align with your interests. Certainly, although you may feel that your tenure with the organization is quite brief, I'm confident that you would bring a lot from your professional experience and your other, volunteer and the other ways that you might be engaging with and supporting your community. So I would give some thought to how you can pull those opportunities and experiences into your application. But transferable skills and fresh perspectives, as we would have heard from Marie and Marco and others, bring so much to our organization. And we're not looking for a set length of time of membership, but rather interest, drive, alignment there with passion and motivations related to the position you're applying for. So I hope that will encourage you to submit an application and at least to begin a little bit more research. And please feel free to reach out to us if you have any follow-ups to that.
And just to point out, our friend Ed, who was a former scholar, just pointed out in the question and answer section that he was a scholar too in 2015. He joined the committee that first year.
And yes, we actually do have scholars serving on several committees, people who are fairly new to the association, maybe just joined in the last year or so. That's actually an excellent way to get to know others and to get to know the work of the association and to learn about the profession. So we encourage that involvement. It's really a lovely way to do it. Next question.
Johanna, this question is for you. Do people get paid to serve on the International ACAC Executive Board?
They do not get paid financially, but you get paid with professional development and other benefits. But no, there is no, you are not paid to be on the International ACAC board. It's a volunteer board. However, if there is any reason why you're like where you work, or if you work independently, that you're not able to afford things like attending the conference or attending board meetings, there is funding available for that. So you don't get paid to be on the board, but we never want money to be a reason that you don't apply to serve. So it would, does that make sense? Teresa, do you have something to add there?
Yeah, this is Teresa. Maybe I'll just jump in a little bit more because this is important. I mean, you're correct. You're not paid to be on the board. You don't get a stipend, but for the summer when we can meet in person, so let's just refer to that because those days will come back again. For the annual conference, the board members come in a few days early for a retreat, and your travel expenses, if your institution won't cover it, we support that. And then of course your conference attendance, registration, housing, etc. The board also gathers in person in September at the NACAC conference when we can do so. And those expenses are fully covered. Actually, no, there's a stipend, a significant stipend that usually covers just about all your expenses, airfare and hotel, assuming your institution would support the rest of it. And if not, then we provide that additional support. We also now cover your NACAC registration fee for the officers. The delegates have that waived. And then, so we absolutely are committed. We don't want finances to be a barrier to engagement, but there is no salary payment or anything.
Thank you, Teresa. I see there are no more questions, and we do have a few minutes. I wouldn't mind putting the panelists on the spot and just give me like a one sentence reflection on what serving on international ACAC committees or the board has meant for you. And I'm going to start with Marco.
Why did I know, Marie, that you were going to pick me to start? You know, I kind of mentioned this, you know, about you get out of it what you put into it. You know, as we've, you know, spent the last 3 years on the board, you know, I think back to my first meeting and being very nervous going in there, knowing, you know, that I was a new person and not knowing what to expect. But, you know, just sitting in there and just, you know, immediately seeing what was being brought forward as motions and the passion that every member was bringing to the table as they were talking about their motions, why they were important to our organization, sharing compelling stories about how it affected their students, how it affected our mission and how we do things. Over the last couple of years, how, you know, we've, you know, been hearing more from our membership about the need to have greater diversity and how we're responding and how we're trying to do better with that. And certainly still much more to be done and a long way to go. But it's a board of people who really do care and who are so passionate about this field and about doing a better job of serving our students and serving our members. So if you're someone who sees yourself as just invested in your work and then you're invested in what you do and trying to always make it the best possible situation for your students, you're going to get a lot out of being involved in International ACAC. And that's on the board, that's in committees, running for president-elect, whatever it may be. If you really have that in you, you have that fire, you're really going to get that out of being involved. So I truly recommend it for anyone who's sitting there feeling like, I want to make a difference. This is how you make a difference, and this is how you can do it.
Thank you. Johanna?
I'll just echo everything Marco said very perfectly. And I would just say it's a wonderful way to go beyond your day job and to make you better at your day job. So being on the International ACAC board has definitely made me a better counselor. It's made me a better member of my community here. And you gain a professional family of support. So like, I think Teresa, in my last meeting, definitely there were tears. You spend a lot of time with these people and it inspired me to continue doing the work I do, even like in my full-time job. So I would consider joining for inspiration, that ability to make change, and for gaining that professional family and network.
Thank you. Michelle?
Just also going to echo everyone, and by saying representing a voice that may not have been represented in a long while is important. You know, being female, being mother, And as a woman of color, I think it's important that it's tiring work, but it is important work, and it needs to be done. And so that is important for me. Also being an advocate for our students, and just helping them navigate through this, but gaining this professional family, like Johanna said, and learning to work with different individuals as well. It's really a inspired community, and I'm and that's the reason why I applied again twice again to run to be on the board, and it's something that I feel is very important to me, personally and professionally.
We
Thank
have
We have one more question. I see a couple more
couple.
questions. I do want to give Allison a moment, and then we'll come back to answer those two questions.
Great.
I'll keep it brief. I echo everything my colleagues have said, and I would just add that if you're really looking to make a tangible impact that goes beyond your day-to-day work, or if you're feeling like there's more you can give to the industry or to your own career, I think this is the perfect way to do that. And our industry is changing every single day, every single year, now more than ever. And this is really an amazing way to keep your finger on the pulse of that change, to be an advocate for some of the changes that we need to be seeing and making. So if you're a big picture person, you want to have a real impact and be able to go to sleep at the end of the day knowing that you're a part of that positive change, this would be a great place for you.
Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and take the first question. The question is, how do candidates that express interest in serving get slated? Is there anything that would disqualify someone from serving? I think the only thing that is a big requirement that shouldn't be an issue is that you need to be eligible to be a NACAC member. So you really need to make International ACAC will help you through that process of becoming an ACAC member. You don't have to be an ACAC member before you run or get elected, but by the time you start your term, you have to be an ACAC member. So looking at am I qualified to be a NACAC member would be an important one, because especially for president-elect and assembly delegate, this is how you are representing us to the national organization. So that's the only thing I would say to look at. The vast majority of International ACAC members are eligible for NACAC membership. It is very rare that wouldn't match. People get slated, they complete the application process, they get slated through the Governance and Nomination Committee will read all the applications. They will do a certain amount of evaluating based on what is written in the applications, what is presented. That then gets put into a slate, which gets sent to the board. The board will approve the slate or will ask the GNC to go back and reconsider some things. And that is how people get slated. So there are no secret requirements. Everything is on the website. How people are being evaluated, that's also on the website. We are fully transparent. Take a look at the elections website. All the information is in there. And I don't remember the second question.
Well, there's another question. I'm going to throw this one to Johanna. Johanna, do you have to be on the board for a certain amount of time to run for president-elect? Also, do you have to serve on committees before running for a board seat?
No, the answer is no for both. I think it's encouraged that you would have some sort of involvement with International ACAC before running for president-elect, only so that you understand what you're getting into, not because you actually have to have that. But I think if you look, as Marie was saying on the website, I think you can see how the applications are evaluated. And one of the things that is looked at is past experience, but it doesn't require that you have specific experience on a committee or it just wants you to highlight what relevant experience you have for the role. So that could be experience outside of International ACAC. It could be with CIS, it could be with something else. But I think just highlighting your skills for the role will be important.
And we're just out of time. If there's any last questions before we end today, now would be the time to submit your question. Otherwise, I'd like to thank all the audience members for your participation, and I'd like to thank our esteemed colleagues for serving on this webinar Wednesday. Thank you all. Again, this is going to be recorded, and you're welcome to visit the webinar website on International ACAC, the website, to get more information on past webinars, to view this webinar, and hopefully this has inspired you to either be engaged, get engaged now, or sometime down the line.
Joe, can I just add, anyone is welcome to contact us directly as well. You can look us up in the directory. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have if you'd rather write to someone directly.
Thank you. I was just going to echo that. And thank you all of you for joining us this morning, and to our panelists for sharing their experiences. Okay, well, thank you very
Great.
much, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Marie. Bye.